What do you mean with this sentence? What are you trying to say? It sounds awful because it's really close to my mouth right now. I'm not putting my headset on and talking, you know? I can put it on, I guess. This should be better. I'll stop my music on my phone. This is problematic. Let me just get this done first. As I was saying, what are you trying to say with this? All of it put on quiet along with not getting the breathable space while cramming for exams caused her a fair amount of stress on her mental health. What is this quiet trying to say? Also, these are the things I've changed. I have এখানে inevitable লেখো ইমিনেন্টের জায়গায় আর এখানে impacts না লিখে একটা এসটা দেওয়ার কোনো দরকার নাই ব্রাদার so are you fine with that? And let me add something here. Destinations, not prevalent, maybe prevalent. That doesn't seem right true. Yes. My other teammate Grace also faced the inevitable impact of the country's prevalent destinations, such as Queensland, that she visits to see her father, siblings, and grandparents, suddenly becoming inaccessible. My fucking god. Am I just bad with computers? Am I a boomer? Impact of the country's prevalent destinations. Suddenly becoming inaccessible, such as Queensland, which she visits to see her father's siblings and grandparents. All of it put on quiet. What are you trying to say here with quiet? What was the what do you call it? What are you trying to accomplish? Quite a bit of pressure. Okay, first of all, quite a bit of pressure. You must understand. You made the same fucking problem here. You see, that's why all of it put on quiet. So here's the thing, this is the problem. You always want to give 3 examples, not 2. You always want to name 3 like situations, not 2 situations, or else this thing that you wrote here becomes incredibly problematic to fix. Okay, so this is one of the things that I don't think anybody will ever teach you, because it's something that's like unsaid. It's not made public, but it's very obvious when you do a lot of reading and do a lot of writing, which is the perfect number of examples is 3 examples. And the flow is broken. The flow is like, it's like if you give 2 examples and make a point off of that, then it's like premature ejaculation, which is what you've done here. You've given 2 examples and then wrote caused her a fair amount of stress on her mental health. What you do is, like, the way it works is, the structure of giving these examples in my experience is, if I were to go a little more in depth, the first example is usually setting a base of what you're trying to talk about, what you're trying to give an example of. The second example is extending that base, you know. Second example doesn't necessarily have to be like, it can be as bland as you can possibly fucking imagine, doesn't matter. It's all in the first and the third example. And the third example is chauffeur leaving my deadline is on Monday. That's unfortunate. And the third example is, let me just finish my rant here. And the third example is where you like basically you're done building the base with the first and the second example, and with the second example you've started to shape what you're trying to create on top of the base. With the third example you completely finish creating what's on top of the base. But prematurely writing this down in the second example causes, problems. Do you get my point? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? Because you're trying to build on a base which isn't stable. Like, it doesn't have that flow, What did you initially write? Did I fuck this up? All of it put on but you see, the reason which you wrote this line for, this absolutely unnecessary line for, is to like put up the illusion of a base, which is also why you yourself didn't realize that it's not like, this isn't good. What is to be done? There is to be made another example. Otherwise, you would have to get very informal with this and write something like, add to that the lack of breathable space while cramming for exams, and you can see why my other teammate, why my teammate, or why Grace, if you're going even more informal, is found herself fairly stressed out, something like that. But that would be informal and somewhat weird in something like this. But you can do that if you want. Let me write it down for you to show you what I'm trying to say. Add to that the lack of breathable space while cramming for exams, and it becomes clear why Grace found herself considerably stressed out. This is theatrical writing. This is like writing for like a fucking. This is not right. This is informal, I have to say. It's like this. This is good writing. When you write all of this down, when all like the entirety of this is good writing, but at the end of the day, this last bit can be considered informal, which is problematic, as you can imagine, since I assume you're trying to keep things as formal as physically possible, since this is for, you know, class and shit. Yeah. But if you think this is fine, if you think being this informal is fine, then it should be fine. At that point in time, we're done here. We don't need a third example. Should I remove that part entirely? I don't think that's a good idea, man. This part is here for a reason, is it not? How would you remove it? If you just start removing parts willy-nilly, then it's gonna cause problems, I have to say. Should we continue? This isn't perfect, but it works. You should get leeway for it. So should we continue? Because at the end of the day, you are referring to your teammate, rather. At the end of the day, you are referring to your teammate, so it being a little informal shouldn't be that much of an issue. And here's something that I do with my own writing, but I wouldn't. This is me going on a tangent here at this point. Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? I think you can get leeway for this. A little is fine, IG. Alright. Here's something that I myself do, but this is entirely me going on a tangent here, and this is something that I myself would do, but you don't necessarily have to. Honestly, you shouldn't. But that is not writing suddenly becoming inaccessible this deep into the article or whatever the fuck you're writing. This you've built up enough on it being inaccessible. This suddenly serves to remind your reader. Okay, fuck off. This suddenly serves to remind your reader the fact that this was sudden, and yeah, but I believe you've built up enough on this already for this to be unnecessary. This suddenly. However, at the same time, if you were to give like like, this is to an uneducated reader. You must understand, whatever you write in class or something has to be seen as something written to an uneducated reader who would not be able to comprehend a lot of things, and reminding them once again that it was sudden might actually be good. Which is why in this particular, which is why I call this a tangent, because this is good. Writing suddenly here is good, but it's just something I would not do. I personally would not do, because it's insulting your reader, you know. But in this particular case, since you're doing it for your class, it should be good. I have no idea why I went on a tangent like that. Fuck me. uh, Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, any regular আমার মনিটরে দাগ নাকি এখানে একটা ফুল স্টপ আমার মনিটরে দাগ গুড শিট Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, any regular destinations, general anxiety remains for her. International travel is still banned. She cannot go to her family in the Netherlands. Wait a second, you're I wait. Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, any regular destinations, general anxiety remains for her. What are you trying to imply with this? You need to be a little more clear. You must understand. Even I have to make assumptions here when I read this, and you must understand you're writing to literal toddlers. That's how they're gonna see it, at least. The only time you're given leeway in this scenario is when you do something really fucking amazing that toddlers would never understand, you know. But that is okay. What do you mean destinations general anxiety? Not all destinations are still accessible, because the first thing that I would think is, even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, any regular destinations, general anxiety remains for her. And when I read this, it's well written. However, I need to make an assumption. Do you mean the assumption I need to make here is, do you mean the anxiety built up after staying home so long, the anxiety of going to a regular destination, or is it the anxiety of a regular destination not being open to her? Which one do you mean? And when that confusion gets stirred, you are to answer it conclusively in the very next sentence. International travel is still banned. She cannot go to her family in the Netherlands. You're answering it, but when I read this, it makes me think she's anxious about actually going to a regular destination. She's anxious. Social anxiety. This makes you think social anxiety. And writing this makes you think more like you're talking about, not social anxiety, the anxiety of actually not being able to go there in the first place. But still, it's not conclusive enough. But the risk of COVID is still here. Yes, I get it, but do you get what I'm trying to say? You're being somewhat unnecessarily cryptic here. Well, not cryptic, but you get the idea. Anxious about getting infected or spreading the corona. Like, I would, that's not the first thing my mind goes to when I read this, you must understand. Which is the problem. You don't want someone misunderstanding what you wrote now, do you? Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, any regular destinations, general anxiety remains for her. International travel is still banned, and she cannot. in that international travel is still banned and still cannot fill it. Nope, what are you noping? Delay is weird, man. um, what was I gonna do? Yeah. Am I just bad with the mouse? What the fuck is wrong with me? National travel is she's still. I know, right? Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be in regular destinations, general anxiety still remains for her, in that international travel is still banned and she still cannot go to her family in the Netherlands. Motherfucker, what? Hey! Hey! Wait a second. This is a word, in access. But how does one write it? It's not in access. Wait. Whatever. Fuck. Used to be. is better, yes. Even though things are slowly returning to how they used to be, the general anxiety caused by inability to access regular destinations remains for her, in that international travel is still banned and she still cannot visit her family. Netherlands. Guess who isn't ever getting a job as a typewriter? The root cause of these destinations becoming both within and out of the country inaccessible is reducing the virus's outbreak. How do you want to write this? It can either be the root cause of these destinations becoming both within and outside of the country inaccessible is reducing the virus's outbreak. Either তোমার তিনটা কমা দেওয়া লাগবে নাহলে আমি কমা ছাড়া লিখে দিতে পারি। The root cause of these destinations becoming inaccessible both within and outside of the country is reducing the virus's outbreak. Would you rather commas or not commas? What outbreak means? I think spread would be a better word here. Comma better? I don't think so, honestly. Because the main reason why comma isn't better is because you've used commas way too much early on, and you will have to use commas way too much later on. Commas are a very important thing, and you can't just completely spread your article with commas either, because that's going to have its own problems. People will run out of breath because they have to continually stop. So I think not giving commas here is good because you're saving up on a valuable resource, you know. It's like instead of wanking, why don't you just, I don't know, fuck. What I'm trying to say is there's only so many wanks you have left in your deck, so why don't you do something else instead of wanking? You can wank later. You get the idea? Which is why comma not better, you see. Do you see my vision, my eyesight? Which reminds me, I should put on my glasses. So shall I remove the commas? I don't wanna be horny, I wanna be happy. This is just unnecessary, bro. Shall I remove the commas? Yes, alright. The root cause of these destinations becoming inaccessible. Oh, আমি অ্যাক্সেসিবল বানানি ভুল করছি, এই জন্য এতক্ষণ আমি ইনঅ্যাক্সেসিবল লিখতে পারতেছিলাম না। মাই গড, আই এম স্টুপিড। Root cause of these destinations becoming inaccessible within and outside of the country is reducing the viruses spread. There is a commonality that many regular destinations were suddenly becoming inaccessible have caused all of them a significant amount of emotional distress either for themselves or their parents. তুমি এখানে কি লিখেছো বন্ধু? তুমি কি তোমার নিজের লেখা কখনো প্রুফ রিড করো না? আমারে দিয়া সব কাম করাবা? Fuck is this? Um, there is a commonality that many regular destinations were suddenly becoming inaccessible have caused all of them a significant amount of emotional distress, either for themselves or their parents. Where do I begin? Every time I read it, I get lost. Fuck you. I'm getting lost in the words, brother. Alex Turner গান শুনতাছি, brother, getting lost in the words, stuck on the puzzle, brother. Fuck is this? What have you done here? Let me start then. That many regular destinations were suddenly becoming inaccessible, causing all of them a significant amount of emotional distress, either both for themselves and their instead of parents you can use one of two words here. Either you can use families or you can use loved ones. Which one do you prefer? Comparing their experiences, this is analysis. Yes, I am aware. I understand. I understand what this is. BRB, let me go see if I can procure some. I'm trying to sound really corny and annoying here, but I'm failing. Beverage? Tea isn't a beverage, is it? Can tea be considered a beverage? Anyways, I'm gonna go try to get some tea. BRB. Meanwhile, you figure out whether you want families or loved ones. Okay, that sounds wrong. BRB. I'm back. Give me a second, actually. So tea is a beverage. That's good to know. Another common feature that many of my mates have reported was how a lack of in-person interaction with their friends adversely affected them mentally and further assured the harrowing feeling of self-isolation in them. That's good. Not entirely sure whether you want to use the word assured here, but otherwise this is good. I'm also not entirely sure whether you want to use the word feature. If you really want to call it a feature, you really want to get cynical over here. in okay. Assured is better than featured, I have to say. Feature is a much bigger problem. Don't know what else to use. I know, right? It's a feature, brother. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's only pain if you think it is painful. Any victim blamers in the chat? Another common. What can I write here? অঙ্ক করি বন্ধু, আমরা অঙ্ক করি. Another common factor that many of my mates have reported was how lack of in-person interaction with their friends adversely affected them mentally and further assured the harrowing feeling of self-isolation in them. Factor doesn't entirely work here, but factor is funny here. At the very least, it isn't cynical. The best word I can think of here is problem, but I don't want to write problem because it's so fucking it's not it's something that fucking toddlers use. Even toddlers know what a problem is. Why would I write problem? What is causing the fucking problem? I am autistic. How did it take me this long? Another common issue that many of my mates have reported. How did it take me this long to remember that the word issue exists? Another common issue that many of my mates have reported was how lack of in-person interaction with their friends adversely affected them mentally and further assured the harrowing feelings of self-isolation in them. Many destinations, such as restaurants and pubs, even after being accessible after a long time, still left its impact on Justin, who works in this what? What are you trying to say here? It's like reading a Murakami book. So many different ways that this can go. So many assumptions I have to make to understand a sentence. What impact are you talking about here? What are you talking about here? If I were to do a rough Bengali translation of this, it would make sense. অনেকদিন পরে রেস্টুরেন্ট খুলছে, এই জন্য রেস্টুরেন্টে যারা চাকরি করে তাদের এফেক্ট করছে. But that's not entirely correct either, because what you've written here is অনেকদিন পরে রেস্টুরেন্ট খুলছে, কিন্তু তাও জাস্টিনের উপরে ইম্প্যাক্ট করছে, কারণ জাস্টিন রেস্টুরেন্টে কাম করে. অনেকদিন পরে খোলার পরে ওর উপরে ইম্প্যাক্ট করছে. You get what I mean? Impact on their mental health plus discomfort. What caused this impact? Did you speak of? I have messaged someone other than you. Never mind, I have not. Marvel next project. Oh my god, Omeo. Imagine being this fucking cunt. Today, Ireland Prime Minister Michael Martin presented a bowl of shamrocks to President Biden, a tradition that dates back to 1952 with President Truman. Although they were physically apart, the president and the toss each renewed the close friendship between our two nations. Yes, close friendship. Yes, I know, right? Any Irishman in the chat? So what is the exact cause of this impact on their mental health? Also, this is the guy who's teaching me right now, and I did one class with him, and I'll start properly doing classes with him from April. He wanted to take classes in March as well, even offered to, take my classes without a fee in March, since half the month is over, out of goodwill. I assume he enjoyed taking my class. You can obviously imagine why. And he was really pushing for taking classes in March, but as you may expect, I have told him to fuck off. Well, politely told him to fuck off, and told him that I'm going to do my classes in April. This guy, this man, I sent you a picture of him before. I'm doing accounting and business with him. He's not half bad. He's decent. Coming back to topic, what's the another common many destinations such as restaurants and pubs, even after being accessible after a long time, still left its impact on them. What are you trying to say here? Where did you find him? Good luck. I don't know. My father found him. Ask him. You think I fucking care where my father found him? If he's half decent, that's all I care about. and he doesn't even need to be half decent as long as he's into fucking annoyance. Another common issue that why do I keep reading that? Many destinations, such as restaurants and pubs, even after being accessible after a long time, still left its impact on Justin, who works in that industry. Now I must ask you, what is the exact thing that left the impact on Justin? Like, what part of these restaurants opening up left an impact on Justin? I'll just keep this up, might be helpful. Hmm? Like now he will have to interact with them customers, so there is a chance of COVID. Motherfucker! If you give me 15 hours to, to put down a list of meanings of this sentence, list of possible meanings of this sentence, then none of them would be this. He's more afraid since his parents are of the most vulnerable age. I see. None of the meanings that I would come up with would be what you've written. What the fuck? Fuck did I? Cool. Understandably anxious about the sea. Having security concerns understanding so same as to how he works in said industry, but I don't want to write that. What did you initially write here? Alright, this should be fine. Next, familiar destinations reopening this and this strikes Marcus feeling. Even if many inaccessible destinations are slowly becoming accessible, the general stigma and anxiety spreading or getting infected by the COVID-19 virus remain, or all these destinations getting closed again? Or are you trying to say if this stigma and anxiety did not exist, then these destinations would end up getting closed again? Is that what you're trying to imply with this? Are you trying to say that if this stigma did not exist, then if this fear did not exist, then these destinations would get closed again? Is that what you're trying to say? Hello? Even if many inaccessible destinations are slowly becoming accessible, the general stigma and anxiety of spreading or getting infected by the COVID-19 virus remain. Are all these destinations would likely end up getting closed again? Even if many accessible destinations are slowly becoming accessible, the journey is still mainly anxiety of spreading or being infected by COVID-19 virus remain. Otherwise, all these destinations would likely end up getting closed again. In one way, grace. One way relationships without me. একটা হাইফেন মেরা দিছো. In one way, Grace faced the consequences differently to the other mates I talked to, as this sudden closure of interstate travel had made it difficult for her to see her immediate family whom she really relied for. In a way, Grace faced the consequences differently to the other mates I talked to, as this sudden closure different consequences to the other mates faced somewhat different. In a way, Grace faced somewhat different consequences. To the other mates I talked to, as the sudden closure of interstate. As the sudden closure of interstate travel has made it difficult for her to relied for emotional support. Face different consequences to the other mates I talked to, in that the sudden closure of interstate travel has made it difficult to see her immediate family on whom she relied heavily for emotional support. Similarly, in Justin's cases, parents being in the most vulnerable age group to get infected he had to be more careful about going out. How are they similar? And in Justin's case, his parents Distance cases parents being the most vulnerable age group to get infected. Be even more careful about going outside than others. Distance cases parents being the most vulnerable age group to get infected. Just in case his parents being in the most vulnerable age group to get infected cause him to be even more careful about going outside than others. Alright, are we done here? Alright. Alright then. I shall end the stream here then.